Fives, welcome to your geography lesson. Now, today is going to be a little bit of a funny one because your geography, as you know, has been a catch up from spring, where we were in lockdown and we did Japan during those lessons, and we were just recapping all of that in class. So, what I thought today is we will be doing a little assessment to see how much we can remember and we've learned about Japan. Now, I haven't left you in the lurch, so I'm going to go through some facts with you today, and then you can log on to Teams and complete the activity that I've set for you. So there's just 10 questions that I'm going to ask you about Japan. I'm going to include all the answers in today's lesson. So we're going to just recap everything that we've been doing, and so we can move on next week. Right, so we're just going to have a quick squiz through this. We've been looking at the map of Japan, where it is found in the world, and we know that it is made up of 4 different islands, okay? And we looked at this map quite intensely in our geography lessons this term, and we drew the map and we looked at the different islands. We looked about the countries that are near to it, and it says that we are both islands, all right? So both the UK and Japan are islands, and that means that we are surrounded by a large body of water. Okay, so it says there that seas and oceans are different because of their size and where they are. So we talk about oceans and seas and the fact that they are different as well. Okay, they are both saltwater, but seas are much smaller than oceans. So if you have a look here, you will see, and we'll get it actually a little bit bigger picture. Let me get it now. If we have a look at this map here of Japan, you can see that there is the Sea of Japan, which lies sort of like north west of Japan, and then we have just below it is the Philippine Sea, okay, and then here is the North Pacific Ocean. Now the North Pacific Ocean looks quite small here, but remember, on a map it is quite a large body of water. In fact, I have got our globe here, so let me just grab it quick. Here is our globe, okay, so if I had to find Japan, which is over here, okay, right, I know you can't maybe really see it, but the Pacific Ocean is all of this here, and it runs all the way to North America. So it is a very large ocean. And over there on the picture, it looks quite small, but on an actual globe, it is a very large body of water. So there's just little differences between seas and oceans, okay, and we had a look already about the seas that and oceans that surround Japan. So Japan is obviously very densely populated, which means there are lots of people that live in that area. Around half the population of Japan live in urban areas, and the most densely populated city is its capital city. Okay, can you remember what the capital city of Japan is called? Hopefully you remembered that one. It is Tokyo. Okay, and over there it says there are more people living in the capital city than the next 3 largest cities combined. Okay, so that's how densely populated Tokyo is. Right, so if we have a look again at the map, we can have a look at our 4 islands that we have. Right, we have the northern island here, which is Hokkaido. And then we have Honshu, which is this large island here. And this is where the capital is on, which is Tokyo. Then we have Shikoku, which is just below, and then Kyushu. Okay, so those are the 4 islands that make up Japan. You will also have a look here, and you can see some of the other countries. We have South Korea, China, and Russia that are closest to Japan. And as we've said, we've spoken about the different seas, okay, and Japan lies north of the equator, all right? So we can have a look here a little bit further down, and you can see the rest of Japan at the bottom here, right? There's some other islands made up of many, many islands around, but these are the 4 main ones that we classify as Japan. Right, so that's a little bit of a map about Japan. So we're going to look at how earthquakes are formed. So the earth layers are a mixture of solid and liquid rock, and they get hotter as they get closer to the planet's core, which is inside here, okay? And the crust is solid rock on the outer layer of the earth and is made up of these large pieces called tectonic plates. So the earth is made up of these sort of puzzle pieces that sort of fit together, but they don't fit together perfectly. Okay, they're a little bit jagged, and when they move, they create friction, and this energy that builds up over time then results in an earthquake. So the Earth's crust is made up of these tectonic plates. Okay, so that's a very important word to remember. Tectonic plates. Okay, and it is made up of these tectonic plates, the crust. And you can see how small the crust layer is compared to the other layers that we get, right? It is the very outermost layer, and it is the smallest layer out of the four. Now, these tectonic plates are constantly moving, okay? We can't feel it. Right now, it's not moving, okay? But even right now, we live on a tectonic plate, and we're very fortunate we're in the middle of a tectonic plate. But right now, it is shifting so ever so slightly, so we can't really feel it. Right, we talk about where the earthquake begins, which is the epicenter. It's got a nice little ring to it because think about center being the middle. So where the earthquake begins, it's generally underwater, where the tectonic plates are moving. And the energy that is created by this earthquake can cause other natural disasters like a tsunami, okay? And there you can see a little diagram of the earthquake starting, which is the epicenter. And you can see here at the bottom, this represents those tectonic plates, and they have come together, and the one has had to suddenly shift. And that's that pressure that's been created and built up over time. And we've talked about our hands coming together, and it can't go and it can't go. And so something has to give, all right? So in this case, in this diagram, the one plate has popped up, all right? And this sudden movement creates an earthquake. And as it's creating an earthquake, if it's underwater, a secondary natural disaster can take place. It'll have an earthquake and a tsunami. And that's why often earthquakes are followed by tsunamis. All right. And so a tsunami is a massive wave, and it travels very quickly. Okay. When it reaches the shore, it can cause huge devastation. It can wipe out buildings. And so you can see there in the diagram how it will suddenly push the water up, and it'll then move towards the shoreline. Now imagine being in a bath as well, and you are the earthquake, and you start moving. And what does that create? It creates this sort of back and forwards movement that creates these big waves. I used to do when I was younger, and my parents were not very impressed because they would find the bathroom floor flooded. So that movement, okay, that sudden movement of my body is then causing the energy to be displaced, and it will then start to move, and the water will then create sort of like a tidal wave. So there you can see that as this tectonic plate has shifted, it has now pushed suddenly, the water has to move, and it then creates this wave, which will then ultimately move towards the shore. Right, so as we say, during an earthquake, the ground shakes back and forth, and it's often very violent depending on the magnitude, how big the earthquake is, okay? And we can measure that using a Richter scale. So that is the device we use to measure how big the earthquake is going to be, okay? And if we had a look here, we can see that the magnitude on the Richter scale, if it is under 2, it is going to be a very, very small earthquake. We call it a micro earthquake. It is not, you don't even really feel it. It's so gentle, okay? And then if we get anything to 8 or greater, that is where we have almost total destruction. So not every earthquake is going to cause massive amounts of destruction. Depending on where it falls on this device of the Richter scale will depend on the destruction that is going to be caused. So there you can see the different magnitudes, and you can have a look at the effects that it has on the areas, all right? And in 2011, and I think I showed some of you some pictures, in 2011, there was a 9 that was recorded on the Richter scale in Japan, and it caused huge amounts of devastation, all right? So you can see anything from 8 or higher is going to cause massive amounts of devastation, and that was recorded as a 9, so really sad. Right, so here are some physical features of Japan. Now we talk about physical features of geography, and that is to do with what is natural to the earth, okay? So things like mountains, forests, cliffs, rivers, lakes, volcanoes, anything that is naturally formed. Now we do not create mountains, all right, or forests or rivers or volcanoes, right? That is natural. So we call that, and it will be classified as physical geography. And it says there that 66% of Japan is covered in forests. There's quite a large amount of the area is covered in forest. And then you can see a little picture of all the lovely trees there. So we get some famous sites. We get Mount Fuji, all right? And Mount Fuji is a volcanic mountain that is very famous, all right? And people often go and take pictures. You can hike up that mountain. Mount Aso is also a volcanic mountain, all right? And we get the Yoshino River. So those are some of the famous sites that people go and visit when they go to Japan. And Mount Fuji is definitely one of the, probably the first up there, okay? Right, then we talk about human geography. So now if physical geography has to do with everything that's natural, we talk about human geography, which is everything that is man-made, and that word human kind of gives it away. So anything to do with man-made, which is like the population, so how many people live in an area, their religions, which the two that they have is Shinto and Buddhism, the currency that they use, so the money that they use is called the yen. They are very famous for their sushi. I love sushi. So that is one of their famous food dishes. They have lots of beautiful festivals. They celebrate New Year's just like us. And they have this beautiful lantern festival where they send these lanterns on the rivers. Okay, and it looks beautiful. And then we get some famous clothing, which is like the kimono. And there's a picture of it there for you. Right, so that is your lesson. That's a quick recap of what we've been doing in class. And now I'd like you to log on to Teams to see how many of those answers you can remember and see how well you do. So good luck, hope it goes well, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye guys.